This is Late Night Health, the radio and video show that cares about the most important part of your life, your health. I'm Mark Alyn, and along with Dr. Greg Celaya, we're going to spend some time talking about an issue that really could affect each and every one of us, and probably in this case is a good benefit for most of us. Dr. Celaya is a functional medicine specialist, and you could reach out to him, by the way, at drcelaya.com, drcelaya.com, or visit us at latenighthealth.com. Dr. Celaya, how you doing today?
Hey, Mr. Mark, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I really am. We're going to talk about the ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet. It's been in the news a lot. What is the ketogenic diet?
Hey, Mark. Well, the ketogenic diet was founded in around 1920 at Johns Hopkins Hospital, where they started to treat epileptic patients with a real high-fat diet as opposed to the normal diet of the day. And they had some pretty dramatic results. They saw huge improvements in these patients.
With a high-fat diet, and at that time, the diet had a lot of fat, but it was more of a natural fat without preservatives and junk in it, like we have in a lot of our food supply today.
Well, yeah, they had a higher fat diet, but it wasn't high enough. And you're right, the food wasn't as tainted as it is today, but it's still, the fat content wasn't high enough even back then.
Interesting. In the late 60s, early 70s, a single research document, a research effort, and then subsequent document launched low fat and non-fat. And we saw over the next few years and into the 21st century a rise in diabetes, a rise in cardiovascular disease, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, the low-fat diet, non-fat diet industry that is billions of dollars, from non-fat ice cream to non-fat, potato chips. They've got, all these things. Are those good for us?
Well, yeah, you look back at the last 30, 40 years, and we've been on a low-fat, no-fat diet, and look what's happened to our health. It's a disaster. Even till today, the USDA says that we should have 45 to 65% of our diet should be carbohydrate. And that leads to inflammation. That leads to increased blood sugar. It leads to increased insulin, and hence leads to inflammation.
All right, let's say that I'm not feeling well. I go to my doctor. I go to my functional medicine physician. And you say, go on a ketogenic diet. What is the diet itself? Is it just high fat from meat, plants? How does it work?
Well, usually you start off with about 70% of your diet from fat, 25% from protein, and 5% from carbs. And you still have to be careful with proteins because proteins can turn to sugar.
Proteins can turn to sugar or carbs?
Sure. It can turn to sugar, which is carbs. Same thing.
Got it. Carbs and protein can both turn to sugar?
Yeah, and the only thing that can't is fat. Fat's done a little bit differently. It's short chain fatty acids, which are a whole different story.
I know that personally, I cook with a lot of olive oil, organic olive oil, and it tastes good. But is that the kind of fat that I should be looking at rather than, say, fat from meat?
Well, no, not necessarily. So, back to the olive oil. Olive oil is great. It's fantastic for salads and everything else, except for cooking. Sorry, Mark.
Got it.
What it has is its smoke point is too low and hence tends to oxidize, which can create inflammation in itself. But olive oil is a great oil. Avocados are a huge source of fats that are healthy for you as well.
And avocado oil, I think, has a higher cooking temperature than burning or oxidation than olive oil.
Yeah, avocado oil is a great oil all the way around. And you would think that your foods taste a lot like avocado when you use it, but that's not the case.
Not like coconut oil.
Not like coconut. Coconut's a great oil too. And when you start doing a ketogenic diet, you want healthy meats and meats that are pasture raised that have the right fat content. And you don't have to worry about the fats. You want veggies and the veggies that are non-starchy. So, the more healthier veggies that help feed your microbiome. Dairy that can be healthy, but sometimes you have to be careful for some of the milks because they can raise your carbohydrate level also.
Uh,
Um,
I'm sorry. You mentioned, inflammation, and a few weeks ago we talked about inflammation is the root cause of many diseases.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
right, and both alternative doctors as well as traditional doctors are starting to accept that as fact. That cellular inflammation is what causes disease or dis-ease, if you will. Can the ketogenic diet help make people healthy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're reducing inflammation by reducing the glucose and insulin. And so we're seeing huge changes in everything from cancer, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, all the neurological disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, memory, cognitive disorders, even autism and heart disease. And
Oh my.
some people say it even helps them clear their skin. But any inflammation can be helped as a result of the ketogenic diet. Great diet, and it's definitely undervalued still at this point.
And it's been around for almost 100 years.
Right, early 1900s, absolutely.
Right, right. From Johns Hopkins. Who knew? I also have been using algae oil. Have you tried that? Have you heard of that one?
I haven't tried it myself. What do you think?
Well, it has very little flavor or taste, but it has a high burn rate. I can't remember. It was very, very high. So it's really good for, uh, you know, putting it in a pan, searing fish or meat and chicken. And it really works well. It really
Well,
works well.
I'll have to give it a shot, but I haven't tried that one yet.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's really good. Would algae oil be a healthful oil?
I would assume it would be. Any of the healthy fats, like you mentioned, coconut oil. You want to try and also increase your dietary consumption of MCT oils, and like I mentioned, the avocado, the olives. All the healthy oils are great for you to increase your fat content.
What's MCT?
Medium chain triglyceride oils, and you can find those in specific. They just call them MCT oils, or unprocessed coconut oils are high in it as well.
And unprocessed, what kind of oil?
Unprocessed coconut oil is
Got it.
higher in it as well. But you can also buy it as MCT oil.
One of the things that I don't like about cooking with coconut oil is that it does have a flavor, and it doesn't always go with the food that I would like to prepare. Any suggestions on that, or
Now,
just change to a different oil?
yeah, you're going to have to do what's good for you. It doesn't bother me at all. At first I taste coconut, but I don't really taste it anymore. And to be honest with you, I love the flavor of coconut, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, I like the taste of a coconut too, but I'm not always, if you're doing a French dish, for example, it may offset the dish in some way. Have there been studies to show that the high fat diet, 70-80% of your intake is fat, can help reduce weight, for example?
Yeah, a lot of people do use it for weight, but you don't even necessarily have to do so. Usually, when a person starts on the ketogenic diet, they're used to being carb burners. So they have to train their body slowly to start burning fat. And it may not be easy in the beginning. You may end up feeling uncomfortable or hungry or having headaches. Usually that means that you're lacking nutrient value from the micronutrients. So, for example, the minerals in the water. If you start increasing your consumption of those, sometimes you notice that all the rest of the symptoms go away and you're fine. But in the long run, when you start burning fat, your body becomes so much more efficient. You start thinking clear, and mentally, it makes a big difference.
Interesting. I know that I read a study not long ago that one of the causes of headaches is dehydration. And you mentioned drinking more water. Our tap water is not normally considered viable. It's not a living water. It's got chemicals in it. It does have minerals. What's your take on bottled water as it works with the ketogenic diet of tap water?
Well, it's, we get into another subject when we start talking about water, but they put different things in our water without really asking us. So for example, the chloramines are there to help make sure that we don't get bacteria content in the water by the time we get it. They also add fluorides, which are something that, like I said, you're not asked about it, but it's something I don't want in my water. So by the time you get the water, you have to make sure that you're filtering it to get rid of those toxins because they're not great for you. On the other hand, you have bottled water, which can lead to a whole host of other things. They may have filtered it, but is the plastic that they're storing it in causing toxicity issues? And way back when, you heard of different toxins associated with that as well.
Right. I think we've talked about that on Late Night Health a number of times. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of the bottled water is now coming in containers or plastic that's plant-based. Have you seen that too?
Yeah, and I just saw some YouTube video, in fact, where they took bottled water from many different sources and they brought it to these different labs to determine what was in the water other than water. And they found a lot of plastic sources in that water as well that you're consuming. Whether you're digesting it or not is another story. It really depends upon what it's made from.
Right. And what about the plant-based? Have you read anything about plant-based plastic bottles?
I haven't read a lot about that yet because it's relatively new, but we'll find out. I'm sure that they're looking at it for a more healthy option, but we'll see what else because I don't know what else they've made it with.
Can the ketogenic diet taste good? For example, I love the Mediterranean diet because I like the various dishes that are from that Mediterranean area, chickpeas and hummus and tahina and different things like that.
Well, yeah, of course it can. It can taste it. In fact, what type of foods give you the most satisfying feeling after eating? Right? They're the fatty foods.
It's true. Fat tastes good.
Fat tastes good because it's great nutrient. It's very dense in its caloric value as well. But it's great. It's one of those diets that most people would be happy to eat. They just have to get used to not consuming like the grains and the simple carbohydrates that they're used to and that they've been, fed a bill of goods for the last 30 to 40 years.
What about the complex carbs?
Complex carbs, it really depends. And if we're talking about fibers, you're great with fibers. Like I mentioned before, you want to do the non-starchy veg. You don't want to eat the potatoes and the sweet peas, and perhaps you want to limit your beets and carrots. So you have to be careful with the veggies that you're eating, but you have to eat a lot of veggies. You have to really nourish the microbiome, which is just about everything nowadays.
So give me a sample of some non-bad vegetables that we should be eating. I mean, I like carrots. I'm not fond of potatoes. I'm trying to think of another thing that I love artichokes. I do like beets, asparagus.
But yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying those foods aren't good. You just have to moderate them to try to keep your carbohydrate level down to 5% of what your diet is. So you have your lettuces, you have your kales, you have your broccoli, you have your cauliflower. The stuff that's not really high in carbohydrate and fluff stuff, like a potato. Potatoes are great, but they're high in carbs.
And what about corn? A lot of the corn that we're consuming these days are genetically modified. You have to be real careful and find organic corn. But corn to me it's sweet, which means it has a lot of carbs. Am I right?
Yeah, and you have to look at everything you're consuming, and you have to weigh really what you're doing. You just have to make sure that here again, you're at 70% fat, 25% protein, and 5% carbs. So, if you want to have yourself corn, you know where the rest of your day is going, right? So, and a potato as well. If you have a small percentage of potato between, you start off at having a limit of about 50 grams of carbohydrate in a day, where the rest of your diet's going to be. It's going to be a little bit different than just any type of carb. So, you've got to make sure that your whole day is planned if you're going to do something like a potato or a corn.
So that you can reduce other areas?
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Got it. In our remaining couple of moments, what else would you recommend about the ketogenic diet to just the average person?
There's so many people starting the ketogenic diet, and they usually just go whole hog right into it. You have to start off slow. You have to retrain your body to burn fat instead of the carbs. It's not easy in the beginning. And it usually takes a couple of weeks for you to get used to this. But once you do, you'll find out that everything starts working better. Like I mentioned, your skin may be clear, your brain starts working better, you have less inflammation, less pains, less aches, and you may find yourself with more energy. In fact, I just read an article of a gentleman who he runs these ultra marathons where he does 100 miles in a shot. And he wasn't able to get to 100 miles. He was stuck at 50 until he changed to the ketogenic diet. And it changed everything in how his body functions.
Oh, that's fascinating. And what about burning the fat off of my belly or my arms or my neck, wherever you might need it?
Well, that can make a difference, because if your body's insulin resistant and you're putting more fat in those fat depositing areas and you're not knowing how to burn fat, you're going to store it more. So the ketogenic can help you lose weight just for the mere fact that it's teaching your body how to burn fat.
And so that it will help burn the fat that's already on your body?
Absolutely. In addition to that, we can get into intermittent fasting, which we should have another show about as well.
Got it. Well, we will do that very soon. All right. This is Late Night Health with Dr. Greg Celaya. And if you would like information on Dr. Celaya, it's Dr. Celaya, DrCelaya.com. That's drcelaya.com. And you have a special offer for those who are watching.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. If you want a free 15-minute consultation, you can go to my website, and there's plenty of options there to sign up for that. Or you can just become a new patient. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. And of course, you can always visit us at latenighthealth.com, latenighthealth.com. I'm Mark Alyn for Dr. Greg Celaya. We'll see you next time.